Sarah was 32 years old. She was of Cambodian American descent and originally came from a rural area near Baton Rouge, Louisiana. She first came across the Strange Story channel more than a year ago through a coworker. Both of them were nurses working at the same hospital during night shifts. That coworker often turned on supernatural stories to listen to, and Sarah gradually began listening along. At first, she was very scared, but over time she got used to it. Eventually, she became addicted without even realizing when it happened, and Sarah said she had encountered many spiritual things in her life. Her family home was next to a Buddhist temple with a cremation furnace. When she went to school, she stayed in a rented room that was haunted. Later, when she began working, she also experienced many events that science would have difficulty explaining. After thinking about it for a long time, she finally dared to write down one of her stories. The story happened in 2008 when Sarah had just entered 10th grade. Her new high school was very far from home. At that time, her family was not well off. They only had an old bicycle that her grandmother had left behind for Sarah to ride to school. Her middle school had also been far from home, but riding back and forth was still manageable. High school, however, was too far to handle every day. In the morning, Sarah had to wake up at 5. After washing up, she had to leave the house by 5:30. She had to ride for more than an hour to reach school, arriving just in time for class. At noon, when school ended, she had to ride home under the blazing sun. Anyone who knows southern Louisiana heat would understand. Riding a bicycle was already exhausting, and the sunlight was so harsh that it made her eyes blur and her head buzz. By the time she got home, she could barely breathe. On days when she had afternoon tutoring, she would eat a bowl of rice and then get back on the bicycle to ride to school again. Seeing how difficult and exhausting it was, after the first month, her parents went to the area near the school to look for a rented room for her. Across from the school, there were 4 or 5 boarding houses, but almost all the rooms had already been rented because Sarah looked for a room late. There were no vacancies left nearby. They had to go about 500 meters farther up the road before finding a small boarding house that still had one room available. That boarding house belonged to Mr. Carter and his wife. The row of rooms had 8 units. The first 2 rooms belonged to Mrs. Helen Carter's older sister, as she used them to sell groceries and soft drinks, so the 2 front rooms were connected to make the space wider. Only 6 rooms were available for rent. 5 were already occupied, and Sarah rented the final one. It was also the last room at the very end of the row. The room was small, so the rent was only $250 a month. Electricity was charged separately. Water came from a well. Tenants could use as much as they wanted, but they had to carry it from the well themselves, so there was no water bill. That cost fit her parents' income, so they decided to rent it for Sarah so she could focus on school. When they were about to leave, Sarah's mother entrusted her to Mrs. Helen by chance. They learned that Mrs. Helen also cooked meals for students. Sarah's mother ordered 2 meals a day from her, so when Sarah returned from school, she would have food ready to eat. Mrs. Helen cooked well and gave Sarah generous portions. There were also 2 11th grade girls renting rooms there. They had started staying there in 10th grade, just like Sarah. And they also ate the meals Mrs. Helen cooked. The layout was like this. The first rooms belonged to Mrs. Helen. Next came the room of Mrs. Teresa and her husband, a nurse. Then came Rachel's room, then Brittany's room. The room in the middle belonged to Mrs. Donna, who sold lottery tickets. The room next to Sarah's belonged to a man whose name she did not know. He sold household goods and rented the place mainly to store plastic basins, pots, pans, and other merchandise. He rarely stayed there. The final room was Sarah's. Each room had its own bathroom, but at the end of the row, there was also a shared bathroom. The row of rooms was not built parallel to the road. Instead, it stretched inward from the road. That meant only Mrs. Helen's front room was near the road. The other rooms faced a huge orange grove that stretched out endlessly. Behind the shared bathroom was a field. During pesticide spraying season, the smell would rise and sting the nose terribly. When Sarah first moved in, she walked around to look at the place. Looking toward the empty fields behind the rooms did not scare her as much as looking toward the orange grove. The grove was dense and planted in rows. Between each row was a small water trench used for irrigation. It looked damp, deep, and strangely endless. The smell was strange, too. It had a sharp scent, like orange leaves and orange peel. In the late afternoon, when the grove owner sometimes paddled a small boat along the irrigation ditches, Sarah would startle again and again. On the first day she moved in, after school ended at noon, Sarah walked from school back to the rented room, ate lunch, and lay down to rest. There was no electric fan. The room also had no ceiling board, so it was hot like fire. It was terribly hard to sleep. After tossing around for a while, she finally managed to fall asleep. Then she experienced something very strange, something she had never experienced at home before. She was not sure whether it was sleep paralysis like people often described. She did not feel pressure on her chest. Instead, she felt as though she had woken up and her mind was already conscious, but her eyelids would not open. She tried to lift her eyelids and open her eyes, but she could not. The harder she tried, the more frightened she became. She could not go back to sleep either. She just lay there like that until she heard Mrs. Donna returning from selling lottery tickets and opening her door outside. Only then could Sarah open her eyes and escape from that strange state. After she opened her eyes, it still took a while before she could sit up. Her arms and legs were stiff and numb. That phenomenon happened only when she slept at noon. At night, it did not happen. Even now, Sarah still did not know what that phenomenon should be called. At first, she thought it was because the boarding room was stuffy and hot and making it hard to sleep and hard to wake, or maybe because she had ridden under the sun and was exhausted, so her sleep became shallow and strange. But then it happened for 3 or 4 days in a row. Every noon, whenever she slept, the same thing happened. She began to panic. Still, her parents had already paid a deposit to the landlord. If she left, they would lose 1 month's rent and the deposit too. Her parents did not earn money easily, so Sarah decided to endure it. At noon, she simply stopped sleeping and waited until night to sleep. That weekend, she went home and told her mother. Her mother took her to a temple and asked for a string of Bodhi beads for her to wear around her wrist. But even after wearing it, Sarah still experienced the same thing. Later, after she became familiar with classmates, she made friends with two girls, Vanessa and Cindy. They sat with her in class. Their homes were also far away, but they did not rent rooms. On days when they had physical education or defense training in the afternoon, Vanessa and Cindy would come to Sarah's room to rest. When they lay down and slept with Sarah, Sarah no longer experienced that strange phenomenon. After Sarah kept persuading them, Cindy finally asked her family for permission and moved in with Sarah. Since they were classmates, they slept and woke at the same times. After that, Sarah no longer experienced the strange noon phenomenon. Cindy stayed with her for several days. Then, that weekend, Cindy went home. Sarah stayed at the rented room because her bicycle was broken. Since Sarah was class monitor, she also had to wait until Sunday to go to the copy shop and pick up study outlines for the homeroom teacher. That day was Saturday afternoon. After eating dinner at Mrs. Helen's place, Sarah went back to her room, planning to bathe. She had just taken out her clothes when the boarding house lost electricity. Back then, power outages happened all the time in that area, so she was used to it. Her room was pitch dark. Since it was the weekend, Rachel and Brittany had also gone home. Mrs. Teresa, her husband, and Mrs. Donna had not returned yet. Outside, the shared bathroom had a ventilation opening, so some light could still come in. It was dim, but visible. Sarah did not know how long the power outage would last, so she took the chance to go bathe quickly, then planned to return and study. She took her clothes and towel to the bathroom at the end of the row. While she was pouring water to bathe, she heard something scratching across the tin roof. Just as she looked toward the ventilation opening, she saw something. The opening was high, so normally she could only see the sky through it, but this time, she clearly saw a blurry human face appear in the middle of the opening. It looked as if the face was baring its teeth and smiling at her. Before Sarah could react, she heard a loud crash on the tin roof, followed by a very loud meow. Then she saw a black cat fall from the roof past the ventilation opening, leap down into the field, and run away. At that point, she knew it was a cat, not a ghost, so she was not exactly afraid, just startled. She waited a while until everything went quiet, then poured water over herself and continued bathing. But then she heard the same rustling sound on the tin roof again. This time, she hurriedly washed as fast as she could, put on her clothes, and went out. The power outage lasted until night, and then it started raining. Sarah asked Mrs. Helen for a kerosene lamp and brought it into her room. By then, Mrs. Donna had also come home from selling lottery tickets, so Sarah dared to open the window for air. Sarah sat by the window to study. At some point, she fell asleep without realizing it. In her half-dreaming state, she heard cats meowing noisily beside her ear. Then it felt as though she was walking into a deep tunnel. On both sides and above her were trees. When she looked more carefully, she realized she was standing between two rows of orange trees beside the boarding house. It was not unfamiliar at all. It had the same feeling as when she first moved in, the rows stretched deep and far, frighteningly endless. She saw a black cat running ahead of her. The strange thing was that it was running on the surface of the water. For some reason, in that dream, Sarah kept chasing after the cat. Her feet splashed through the irrigation ditch. The water was not deep, only up to her waistline, but it was a deep green color. She kept chasing it, running and running, but the row of orange trees never ended. Suddenly, the black cat stopped. It turned around and looked at her. Its eyes shone brightly. Sarah stopped too and no longer chased it. The distance between her and the cat was only about 5 meters. In the space between them, something began bubbling up from the water. It looked like when water boils and tiny bubbles rise rapidly to the surface. Then a head suddenly emerged from underneath. Its eyes bulged outward. Sarah became terrified and turned to run. She felt as if she had missed a step. Her foot jerked violently, and at that exact moment, she woke up with a start. She said truthfully that she had never had a dream that haunted her mind so strongly or remained so clear in her memory. By then, the electricity had returned. The light from the walkway outside shone into her room. Though her own room was still dark, she saw Mrs. Donna hanging freshly washed clothes on the clothesline between their rooms. Mrs. Donna asked, "What did you dream about that made you scream so loudly?" Sarah told her the dream. That was when she learned something shocking. 3 years earlier, the owner of the orange grove had gone out to pump water for the trees and had been electrocuted to death right in one of those irrigation ditches. Everyone in the area knew about the grove owner's death. Only Sarah, being from far away, did not know. Mrs. Donna said that when he died, his head had been facing toward the boarding house. That man was also a relative of Mr. Carter, the landlord. After his death, Mr. Carter bought part of the land on this side at a cheap price and built the row of rental rooms. Hearing that, Sarah became afraid. She asked Mrs. Donna whether she had ever seen him since moving there. Mrs. Donna said no. At first, when I rented the room, I was scared too, but the room was cheap, so I stayed anyway. Every night, I recite the Great Compassion mantra and keep a small kitchen knife under my pillow. Since moving in, I haven't seen anything strange. Sarah then asked, "Auntie, tomorrow when you go selling, can you buy me a new knife? I'm busy with school and can't go buy one." Mrs. Donna agreed. She also told Sarah that before sleeping at night, if she did not know the Great Compassion mantra, she should at least pray. Say that you are a student staying here only because of school. Ask any unseen spirits to have mercy and not scare you, so you can stay healthy and study in peace. That night, Sarah prayed exactly as Mrs. Donna taught her. Because she had slept in the afternoon, she could not sleep late at night. She lay tossing and turning while listening to the rain hitting the tin roof. The rain and wind were heavy that night. As Sarah lay there, she kept feeling as though someone was walking back and forth right outside her door. There was a gap under the door, and she clearly saw a shadow moving past again and again. She was so frightened that her whole body stiffened. She did not dare move. She pulled the blanket over herself and lay still like that, enduring the entire night. Only near dawn did she finally fall asleep. She had only dozed off briefly when morning came. People began opening doors and talking outside, so she woke up. When she opened her doors, she saw a black cat lying on a shirt she had hung up to dry that had fallen to the ground. The cat was between her room and the shared bathroom, on the strip of land below. It was terribly thin. When someone came near, it ran toward the orange grove. Sarah would not dare cross into that orange grove even if someone paid her. The mother cat had left behind a kitten. The kitten was black too, with a small patch of white fur on its head. It was only about the size of 3 fingers and had already opened its eyes. Seeing the mother cat run away and leave the kitten there, Sarah felt sorry for it. She was afraid ants would bite it. So she went up to Mrs. Helen's place and asked for a cardboard box. She left it right where the kitten was, lined it with paper, and placed the kitten inside to keep it warm. She thought the mother cat would come back and carry her kitten away. But from noon until afternoon, even when Sarah came home from school, the mother cat still had not returned. So Sarah brought the cardboard box into her room and placed it near the door. The mother cat did come back, but she left the kitten there. Sarah saved a little rice and placed it nearby for the mother cat to eat. After about a week, the mother cat became used to Sarah. It no longer ran when it saw her. After eating, it would run back into the orange grove, into Mrs. Helen noticed and later told Sarah that the black mother cat had belonged to the former owner of the orange grove. He had kept it at the watch hut in the grove. After he died, no one took care of it, so it wandered around by itself. Feeling sorry for the kitten, Sarah decided to raise it. When the kitten grew strong enough to walk properly, the mother cat stopped coming to Sarah's door to eat. Only occasionally did Sarah see it running across the tin roof. Sarah would call to it, but it never came down. Cindy stayed with Sarah for only 1 month before she dropped out of school and went to the city to work. So Sarah continued staying alone. The kitten grew bigger day by day, and the bigger it grew, the more attached it became to Sarah. When Sarah came home from school and opened the door, she would see it sitting on the study desk, waiting for her. Its round eyes were adorable. Whatever Sarah ate, she fed it the same thing. Back then, there was no cat kibble or pet pate like now. Sarah believed animals had spiritual awareness. They could sense things before they happened and could protect their owners. She remembered one time when she was about to go pick up photocopied study outlines to distribute to the class the next day. She put on her jacket, closed her room door, and was about to wheel her bicycle out when the cat came over and scratched at the leg of her gym pants. It scratched hard, as if deliberately showing her that it wanted to hold her back. It wanted Sarah to bend down and pet its head. It scratched so hard that it pulled threads loose from her pants. Sarah scolded it and lightly pushed it away with her foot. But it rushed at her again, bit the leg of her pants, and pulled her back. Sarah thought, "What is wrong with this cat today?" She crouched down and grabbed it by the scruff the way she often did when playing with it. Its 2 ears were flattened backward, as if it was afraid of something. Its round eyes stared intensely at her. Sarah picked it up, intending to lock it in the room, but as soon as she opened the door, It jumped down and ran straight under the study desk to hide. Sarah thought it might be hurt somewhere, so she followed to check. She had just stepped back into the room when she heard a loud bang behind her. She turned around and saw that a stone larger than a fist had just been thrown at the exact spot where she had been standing moments before. The stone hit the door of the shared bathroom and dented it. Sarah was shocked. She stuck her head out and saw a strange man causing trouble in front of Mrs. Helen's grocery shop. He was throwing Mrs. Helen's things everywhere. He grabbed stones, then chairs, and threw them. Anyone who entered his sight became his target. If Sarah had not gone back into the room in time, that stone would have struck her directly in the head. Mrs. Helen screamed for help and shouted for him to leave. No one knew whether he was drunk or what. But he had suddenly run in and started destroying things. Mrs. Helen was scared and ran across the road to avoid him. The tenants in the row of rooms also rushed into their rooms and locked the doors. Sarah quickly shut her door and hid inside. Outside, the man walked down the row of rooms, pounding on doors loudly. Sarah was so scared that she crawled under the desk and hugged her cat tightly. Fortunately, he only reached Rachel's room before Mrs. Helen managed to call several young men nearby. They came in, restrained him, dragged him outside, and tied up his hands and feet. Just then, the local police arrived. Only then did Sarah dare open the door and go outside to look. After listening to Mrs. Helen, Sarah learned that the man was high on drugs, not drunk. It was the first time Sarah had ever seen someone in that condition. She was so frightened that the memory still haunted her. Another time, Sarah was sleeping when she woke up needing to use the bathroom. She checked the clock. It was a little after 4, nearly morning. Her cat was still lying in the little nest she had made for it. Sarah returned to the mosquito net, but she could not fall fully asleep. She lay there half awake, half asleep. Outside, everything was incredibly silent. Even though the room was near the road, she could not hear any vehicles. It was so quiet that she could hear crickets chirping. Suddenly, her cat meowed loudly, startling her. She lifted her head and looked. Under the gap beneath the door, she saw 2 feet standing right outside her room. The frightening thing was that the door had an iron lower half and frosted glass on the upper half. Sarah could see 2 feet standing below, but on the glass above, there was no human shadow at all. She was afraid it might be a ghost, but also afraid it might be a thief peeping in. Before she could react, she saw a shadow glide across the glass portion of the door, while the 2 feet below remained standing perfectly still in the same place. At that same moment, Sarah's cat's fur stood up. It ran wildly toward the door, growling and scratching at the door in a terrifying way. Sarah looked up. The shadow had passed across the door and gone toward the back, near the shared bathroom. It did not return. After the shadow passed, her cat stopped scratching the door. Sarah forced herself to crawl out and hold it, but its eyes were still fixed on the door. It bared its teeth and hissed, as though still guarding against something. Sarah stayed awake until morning. Only when Mrs. Donna woke up did Sarah dare open the door. By then, Sarah was sure the boarding house was haunted, but aside from the strange noon sleeping phenomenon, it did not affect her too much, so she continued staying there until the end of 10th grade. During the 3-month summer break, she did not stay there. Mr. Carter only charged 1 month's rent. When summer ended and she returned, he resumed charging as normal. The kitten continued living with Sarah. Wherever Sarah went, it followed close at her feet. After summer, when Sarah moved her belongings back to the boarding room, she brought the cat with her. When she returned, Mrs. Donna told Sarah that the black mother cat had died. Sarah asked how. Mrs. Donna said someone had found it dead in the irrigation ditch after the body had floated up and begun to smell. The kitten seemed to understand that its mother had died. It was sad for 2 whole days. It refused to eat the rice Sarah gave it. Normally, it ran around and caused trouble, but during those 2 days it lay quietly in one spot. Near the first semester exams of 11th grade, students from nearby boarding houses often gathered in front of the school gate in the evening around 6 or 7 to study. There were 2 very bright streetlights there. The students wanted to save electricity, so at night they often went there to study. Those who reviewed lessons would place their notebooks on stone benches and sit on slippers on the concrete ground. Those who wanted to play shuttlecock would play nearby. In 2008, cell phones already existed, but not everyone had one. Only families with better finances bought phones for their children. If one student had a phone and played music, the whole group would sit and listen, singing along loudly. Sometimes they pooled money to buy banana ice cream, a block ice cream, or fried fish balls. Each person got only 1 bite, and before they could satisfy their craving, everything was gone. Sarah enjoyed the fun too, so she brought her notebooks and walked to the school gate to study with the others. She also had classmates renting rooms near the school. It was past 10 when she walked back to her boarding room. Because Mr. Carter did not live there, he left the gate key with Mrs. Helen. Mrs. Helen was very easygoing and often went to sleep early, so people could come and go freely. They only needed to unlock the gate and enter. The row of rooms had a light in the walkway, but after 9, Mrs. Helen would turn it off. When Sarah returned, Rachel's room and Mrs. Teresa's room still had their lights on, but their doors were closed. Sarah could still vaguely see the way as she walked inside. When she had just reached the area around Rachel's room, she clearly saw someone crouching in the corner between her room and the shared bathroom. At first, although she felt a chill run down her back, she did not think it was a ghost. She was more afraid it might be a thief or a drug user. She froze. Then, as if something had influenced her, instead of running away, she took several steps closer to the person. The closer she got, the clearer she saw that the person's face was completely black. Only the 2 eyes were white. There was no visible nose or mouth. Sarah was so frightened that she screamed. Luckily, at that exact moment, headlights appeared. Mr. Paul, Mrs. Teresa's husband, was coming home late from work after drinking at a construction job. When Sarah screamed, the other rooms opened their doors and people came out. Sarah turned to look back. The person crouching in the corner had disappeared. Mrs. Donna asked, "Why are you screaming like that, child?" Sarah told them she had seen a black figure with two white eyes. Everyone half believed and half doubted her, but her face was pale, so they told her to go inside and sleep. But how could Sarah dare go into her room? The thing had been sitting right by her window. That night, she carried her cat to Rachel's room and asked to sleep there. Even after that, Sarah was stubborn. She still rented the room because it was cheap, partly, too, because she liked Mrs. Helen. After that, she no longer dared come home late. Around 6 in the evening, she would close her door tightly. After the time she saw the black figure, Sarah remembered that she had forgotten to recite the Great Compassion mantra before sleeping. She also listened to her mother and placed orange peel under her pillow. Her mother said doing so would give off the fragrance of orange peel. First, it would help her sleep. Second, it would keep her from having strange dreams. Oddly enough, the orange peel under her pillow had the same orange scent, but it smelled much more pleasant than the scent of orange peel or orange leaves from the grove next door. From then on, Sarah did not encounter many more spiritual events. That lasted until the man who rented the room between Sarah and Mrs. Donna moved out and returned the room. It sat empty for a while before Mr. Carter rented it to a woman named Kelly. Kelly was very beautiful. Her face was pretty, and her figure was attractive. Sarah heard from Mrs. Donna that Kelly worked as a beer promotion girl at a restaurant near the intersection. Sarah only heard that much and did not know the details. Because Kelly had a nice figure, she dressed in revealing clothes. She woke up late, around 11:30, when Sarah was returning from school. Around 2 in the afternoon, Sarah would see Kelly ride her motorbike to work. She usually came home around 11 or midnight. Because they were next-door neighbors, they greeted each other when they met. Kelly was friendly, often chatted with Sarah, and if she had fruit or snacks, she shared them with Sarah and Mrs. Helen. Whenever it rained and Kelly was home, she often helped collect clothes from the lines for the other tenants. Around that time, the drains in the private bathrooms of several rooms kept clogging. The water would not flow out into the drain pipe behind the row of rooms. Instead, it backed up into the rooms, dirty and smelly. They had to wait for Mr. Carter to come and call someone to inspect and repair it. In the meantime, the tenants were forced to use the shared bathroom more often. Sarah's room had the same problem too, but she was too afraid of ghosts, so when she came home from school, she tried to bathe early, or she waited until Mrs. Donna was washing clothes outside before daring to use the shared bathroom. Every time Sarah bathed there, she felt as if someone were watching her. It made the back of her neck prickle. The ventilation opening had already been covered with paper by Mr. Paul, Mrs. Teresa's husband. One night, Sarah dreamed again. She dreamed of a black shadow. This time, she could see a little more clearly. It was a middle-aged man around the same age as Mr. Carter, the landlord. His face somewhat resembled Mr. Carter's too, but he looked blurry and strange. He looked at Sarah with a face full of anger. He was sitting heavily in the orange grove under an orange tree. He looked at her and said, "You people are stupid." She deliberately stuffed banana leaves into the head of the drain pipe behind the boarding house to clog it. She wanted you girls to go out there and bathe so he could peep. Young girls, and you're all so careless. After saying that, he picked an unripe orange and threw it at Sarah's head. Even in the dream, Sarah dodged to the side. At that moment, she woke with a start. She checked the clock. It was exactly midnight. For some reason, she remembered that dream very clearly, every word the man had said. It felt too real, like the boarding house really did have clogged drains. Whenever Sarah bathed, she really did feel as if someone were watching. Too many things matched. Still, after thinking it over, it was only a dream, and there was no exact proof. Sarah did not dare tell Mrs. Helen or anyone else. 2 days later, on Saturday, after half a day of school, Sarah went home. On Sunday afternoon, she returned to the boarding house. She bathed, went into her room, and slept as usual. Late that night, she heard Kelly shouting loudly outside. Kelly had brought 2 or 3 men with her, and they were standing right at the door of Mr. Paul and Mrs. Teresa's room, cursing. Kelly said Mr. Paul had been peeping at her while she bathed. Kelly had come home from work after 11. By then, all the rooms had closed their doors and gone to sleep. Mrs. Teresa was on duty at the hospital, so Mr. Paul was alone in their room. Kelly had taken her clothes and gone to the shared bathroom to bathe. Mr. Paul climbed around the side to peep at her. Unfortunately for him, Kelly had brought her boyfriend back to sleep over in her room that night. While the boyfriend was standing outside smoking, he accidentally noticed a human shadow lurking beside the bathroom. He went over, grabbed the person by the collar, and shouted for everyone. Now he had called more people over to beat Mr. Paul. At first, they did not intend to lay hands on him, but since he had been caught peeping at a woman bathing instead of staying quiet and apologizing, he denied everything. He insisted he had only gone to get water from the well and had not peeped at anyone. After arguing for a while, he became more shameless. He said Kelly worked like a bar girl and dressed in revealing clothes, so of course people would look. That made the others furious, and they rushed in to beat him. Kelly's boyfriend picked up a brick and struck Mr. Paul in the face, sending him to the hospital. After that incident, Mrs. Teresa came home, and the couple argued for a while. Later, it seemed they separated. When Mr. Carter came to inspect and repair the drain, Sarah was eating at Mrs. Helen's place. Mr. Carter came up, sounding very annoyed. He said, "What kind of person stuffed banana leaves all through the drain pipe? I had to pull them out until I was exhausted." Sarah sat there listening, and her whole body stiffened. It was exactly what the man in her dream had told her. That day, after school, Sarah bought fruit and asked Mrs. Helen for a few incense sticks. She brought them out and made an offering near the fence beside the orange grove, right at the place where she had seen the man sitting in her dream. Sarah stayed in that room until the end of 11th grade. Then she moved to another boarding house with a classmate and stayed there until she graduated high school. The cat was left at home for her parents to raise. During Sarah's first year of college, the cat passed away. Sarah loved it very much. Since then, she never raised another pet.